This is the story of my mother and my father, because my mother, around the time that I was getting into, the occult on a real low level, my mom had multiple aneurysms and she became crippled and blind. And so my dad was in this very tough place. We had, we were wealthy, and my dad had to make the choice to either, pay to have my mom's life saved or just let her go and then, have money, and the doctors told him
Mhm.
as much. They said, look, she's probably going to be a vegetable. You should probably just let her go. And he decided no. And so we lost everything. My dad, we lost our house, we lost our cars. It got to a point, it was a dwindling down. We went from, two-story house, pool, all that stuff. Those who might hear this, they'll remember that, if me and my old friends. And it went from having this wonderful house, my dad having his own business, multiple businesses, to having a townhome, to living in a rented home, to living in, a two-bedroom apartment in a really bad, motel area, to them,
Mhm.
not having any place to go, literally being on the street. And I gave them my 1979 Volvo that I had, so they had a place to sleep. So I gave them my Volvo, and I started couch surfing. Um, this is important because my mom, was a woman of the world. African Americans, and I'm not like all that stuff. I'm just saying, like, we were like the first black family in Garden Grove.
Mm.
So shout out to Sublime fans.
Mhm.
And so you got to understand the pride that my dad had of being able to provide that for his family. You know what I mean? And my mom liking fine things and everything. But my mom, woke up one day, had an aneurysm, you know, didn't thought life was going to be one way, basically died, and then she woke up blind, but had an encounter with Christ. And so my mom was a completely different person from that moment on. My mom became basically like a saint, and it was in her suffering that I saw something different. It was in her suffering that the first vestiges of life were shown to me. Life beyond what you have and what you wear and the entertainments that you have.
Mm.
I remember complaining to my dad about, why do we have to leave our house? And I hate moving and packing. I was being a typical punk, not even like punk as in punk rock, but like punk kid who my dad should have just rammed my teeth down my throat. My dad just looks at me. He says, "You still got a mom, don't you?" Those moments of like my heart being formed, because I was like everyone else, selfish. We're selfish. We're materialistic. We're vain, shallow people. All of us. This whole culture. And it has been. And it's only in the light of suffering do you become a human being.
Mm.
And it was in the light of the suffering of my mother and watching my father sacrifice for real love. Real love. That's really where the story begins. All the other stuff we've been talking
Wow.
about the last 5 hours, that's just all that's just the static that began to form the real signal. The real
Mm.
signal was that witness of love that my dad gave, and that my mom, being in the midst of despair. Can you imagine having everything and then being blind and living in the Volvo that your son gave you? Can you imagine that? But still holding on to something. What is that? Right? That's the real story. So